You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889. Also sponsored by CNB Bank. Go to carlsbadnational.com to learn more. Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name's Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM and the host of Community Forum. And today, for the first time since I've been the owner of the radio station and hosting Community Forum, I have a guest host. So I want to introduce my guest host. My guest host is Sky Soto. Sky Soto is the Director of Marketing and Public Relations here at Southeast New Mexico College. And I say here at Southeast New Mexico College because that's now where our radio station records all our programs in. So we're really happy to be here. I'm really happy to have our first guest host who has a guest of her own, but we're going to start with Sky. Sky, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited. I know that, so you said you used to do some Community Forum hosting when it was owned by someone else years and years ago, right?
Yes. I used to do the Community Forum with the old KCCC radio, and I really enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. And then during the pandemic, it kind of changed.
Right.
So I am really happy to be back and being a part of the Community Forum again.
Well, I'm happy that you're here too, because if I can do less and less work and still have all the fun at the radio, all the benefits of the radio station, I'm all about it too. You know what I mean? So I think I need guest hosts all the time, Scott. But thank you for being here. We look forward to having you on a lot. So I want to kind of hand it over to you and let you kind of run this one today, because you have a guest here, and I know we're doing something special for Women's History Month.
That's correct.
Right. Take it away and then allow me just to help you out and be with you.
I would like to introduce our guest on our Women's History Month podcast series, Cassie Marrs. She's an environmental scientist at Los Alamos Technical Associates, and she's done some great work and great things in the community. So I would just like to start with where are you from? Are you from Carlsbad or?
Yes, I'm from Carlsbad. I was born and raised here. Lived here my whole life. I only left for college, and yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what have you enjoyed about your career so far?
I really enjoy that I get to learn something new all the time. I've been working in it for a while, and I work as part of the WIP project, and I grew up around the WIP project. My dad's worked there for 30 plus years. Other family members have worked there, but I love that I'm constantly still learning new stuff about it. There's so much involved, and it's just really interesting to always learn something new. The other thing that I really enjoy about my career is it involves a lot of problem solving. And I love solving problems. And I think the best part of solving problems is when you actually come to the solution and you figure it out. And that's one of the best feelings ever.
So could I ask a question real quick about that? So seems to me like that's a pretty high level of education for what you're doing, right? And so I know you said you left Carlsbad only for college, and then you came back right away. Thank you for loving Carlsbad so much, just like we do. But I guess my main question is where did you have to go for that type of education?
So I actually attended Eastern New Mexico University, and I actually got my bachelor's in forensic chemistry.
At Eastern,
and then I stayed there and received my master's in chemistry.
So I guess I'm getting to a point here, because she told us, Sky, before we did the interview that she went to Eastern New Mexico University, right? Now, I like that, too, because I'm a Greyhound. I know you're a Mustang from Western New Mexico University, but we love Silver City, too, right?
Yeah.
My point being is that you have a very technical job. You have a job that you love. You have a job that's well-paying when it comes to the nuclear industry, and you were able to do all of that without leaving the state of New Mexico.
Right.
Right? That's a conception that people don't have, right? The misconception is that I have to leave New Mexico to have an amazing career in a highly technical industry, dealing with the latest technology and the future of energy and all that stuff, right? You didn't have to leave New Mexico at all. So, I mean, kudos to us and kudos to our state, basically, is what I want to say. That's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Please, sorry, I just had to say that. I thought that was great. Look at the opportunity at the state.
Right.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, there's so many people in our community that have done so well, and they all went to college in New Mexico. Some of them have actually started at Southeast New Mexico College, whether they were a dual credit student or they were, starting with their associates. We have a lot of great people in this community that, have grown up in Carlsbad and have gone to school in New Mexico, and that is what makes us great.
So I know you said that you really love your career and it's exciting and your solutions and problem solving, but I got to tell you, you said a lot about your career, but I have no idea what you do.
Okay. Well, I can give you a little bit more on that. So as we mentioned, I work for LATA. We're a subcontractor to SENMC, who is the management and operating contractor for the waste isolation pilot plant. So my role in it is I work more on the regulatory side of things. So we want to make sure that WIP is following the federal and state regulations. So there's kind of two areas to my job. Many people have probably heard people talk about the hazardous waste facility permit. So that's part of my job is I help make sure that that permit is up to date, which is with the state. And the other part of my job is I'm part of the NESHAPS group. So NESHAPS, that stands for the National Emissions for Hazardous Air Pollutants.
Okay.
So we do some data analysis for radiological air monitoring around the state. And every year I have to write a report and send it over to the EPA. And so, yeah, like I said, the big part of my job is just making sure that that WIP is following the state and federal regulations, and we're keeping the public and the workers safe.
How's WIP doing?
Doing good.
You're like a watchdog, kind of, right? Yeah, and every year you're making a report and checking them out.
Yeah, and we work with NMED, the New Mexico Environment Department, and EPA, and they come down and they do inspections, and we work with them, and we make sure that everyone's doing good, and they are. You know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what are some challenges that you have faced as a woman in your career?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I'll start off by saying, in college, I really didn't realize that there was such like a big gap between the men and women until maybe grad school, when I started taking classes then, and all my professors were male. And then all my classes, it was just either me or maybe another woman in all my classes. And these are small classes too. There are like 10 to 15 students in these classes. And I remember some of the male students, they would try to do my work for me as if I couldn't do it. Seriously, they would try to be like, oh, I'll do your homework for you. It's okay. You don't need to worry about it. And I'd be like, no, it's okay. I'm capable of doing my homework. We would have to give presentations and make PowerPoint presentations, and they would actually send me completed PowerPoint presentations. I don't know where they got them from. I don't know if they took them from somewhere else, but they would send me completed PowerPoint presentations and say, here, you can just use this for your presentation. And I'd say, no, I'm capable of making my own presentation. So it was kind of interesting when I started realizing, like, wow, this is really weird. And then as a woman now in my career and working at WIP is great. There's a lot of women that work there, but it's obviously male dominated. And I walk into meetings all the time where I'm one or two women. In fact, I just did a training here at the college, the MSHA training recently, and I think there were 3 women out of like 20 plus people in the class. So it's always kind of eye-opening when you see that. And one of the challenges that I think I face personally is trying to find my voice in those rooms. You get a little intimidated when you're in a room full of men, and you're kind of scared to speak up. What if I say the wrong thing, or what if they don't respect what I have to say, or what if they think I'm just being bossy or too assertive, and it's all these little things that you're thinking about constantly. So I think it's a challenge that I have to overcome, and most women have to overcome. And I also think, too, that it's on the men as well to make the women in the room feel comfortable and to include us and respect us and ask questions and help us be more engaged. So maybe if we're not speaking up, they can be like asking us for our opinion. And I promise you, we probably have really great ideas and really great opinions. You just got to ask.
Yeah, so. And I agree. I know I've been in situations like that before as well, and then you're kind of in this freeze mode of, okay, do I speak up? Do I keep quiet? What do I do? And so I totally relate to you in situations like that. What do you do when you're in a bind, or what would you tell another woman or another girl, like if they're in a situation like that, how to handle it?
I would say to not be afraid to speak up, that there are many men out there that will respect you and do want to listen to you. And I just think you need to find a way to use your voice and not be afraid and gain confidence. And even if maybe it's not right in the meeting if you're in a meeting and you have a really great idea, maybe if it's not right then and there that you want to speak up, maybe afterwards go tell someone, hey, this was mentioned in the meeting and I didn't get a chance to speak up, but I wanted to say this. And maybe if you keep going out there talking to the men or even other women in the group and telling them your ideas, the next time you're in the meeting, they're going to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Because last time you had that idea and I really liked it. But yeah, I think it's all about gaining confidence and not being afraid. And it's a hard challenge to overcome. Because I'm usually a pretty quiet person. So I find that happening to me all the time where I'm sitting in a meeting and I have these ideas popping up in my head and I'm not speaking up. And then I have a coworker after the meeting and she's like, I know you had something to say. And I'm like, I know, but I didn't say it. So it's just a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, I know. I think it's one of those things where I've had that too, where it's almost like you have a movie playing in your mind and you're like, I really want to say this, but I can't find the right time. And then afterwards it's like, oh, I should have said that. And I definitely think it's, a challenge for many women. And it's something that, I hope that we can overcome and learn from. I was also wondering, what would you tell other women and girls that are interested in STEM? You talked about that it's very male dominated, and we hope that the STEM fields would expand to more women. But what would you tell girls or women that are interested in becoming scientists or engineers or anything in the STEM field?
So first thing I would say is not to be afraid and to go for it. I think education is really important, especially in the STEM fields, and I really think you need to go after your degree, go to school. If you're even kind of thinking about going after a master's or a PhD, I say go for it. I know so many women now who are in their 30s and their 40s, and they tell me, I wish I would have got a master's. I wish I would have got a PhD. And I know some who are going back to school in their 30s and 40s and getting a master's or a PhD. So I say, go for it. Like, I know, us women, we tend to start thinking about things like, well, I don't want to wait too long to have kids, whatever it is. But it's okay, go to school, get your degree, start a career. You can have kids in your 30s. I know people who are doing it, all the time. So that's one piece of advice I would give. Another piece I would say is don't be afraid to fail and make mistakes. I know as women, I think we feel like we have to be perfect and we can't afford to fail because not only are we competing with men, but we're also, I think, tend to compete with other women. Because, like I said, when you're in this field and it's a male-dominated field, I think sometimes we get in this mindset that there's only room for, like, maybe one woman or a few women. So not only are you competing with the other men, but you're competing with other women. But I think you have to understand that it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes, and own up to those mistakes and learn from them. I think people will respect you more if you're like, hey, I messed up, I did this wrong, instead of trying to make excuses like, oh, well, I didn't know that, or it was so-and-so's fault, own your mistakes, and it's okay, and it's going to be okay. And then my last piece of advice for girls going into STEM fields, I think, is to find a really good support system. I know we're all strong, independent women, and we can do it on our own. And I know you can. I know I can. I know you can. We can all do it. But honestly, you need that support system, whether it's your family, a friend, a coworker, a partner, whoever it is. You need to have a cheerleader to be there for you, and someone who is also there for you on your bad days to vent to, and then be that person for them. When you're supporting them, they're going to support you, and it's just going to make a more positive life.
I agree. And I think we have, great support systems in Carlsbad as well. We have AAUW. Right. We also have a new group that's called The Power of She. Mm-hmm. And they have, different events where women can come together, whether you're, a stay-at-home mom, whether you are a career woman. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so great that we're so dedicated to that in Carlsbad. And I know that there's some challenges and we could do better, but I think we're definitely going into the right direction. And I like that you mentioned, also the challenge when women want to start families and they don't know, like, oh, do I need to stay home or do I need to work? And I really liked your answer of, you can do both. You can raise a family and work full time. From personal experience, that's what I do. I work and I have a baby at home, and luckily I've had a really great family support system. But it's one of those things that, a lot of women face. I know when I was pregnant, a lot of people asked, like, oh, are you going to stay home? And I said, no, I went to school, I have a good job, and I want to keep doing that. And I think that is a big challenge many women face. And I think that's great that, that you have that advice for girls. So that's awesome.
Can you give the information on where people can find those information on those two groups you mentioned, like their Facebook pages or something of that nature?
Yeah. So the Power of She can be found on Facebook, and it's a Facebook group, I believe. And then AAUW is a national organization. Cassie, you probably would have more information about that.
I'm actually president of the AUW Carlsbad group here.
Okay.
And so we have a Facebook page. We have a website. And I'm also a member. I'm also the membership chair of the state level. So we're a local, state, and national organization. We have social events. We have fundraisers. We do stuff to honor the girls who are doing well academically. We host a STEM event actually here at the college. We just recently changed the names, now called Exploring the Possibilities. It's for 6th grade girls. And the whole thing, it's taught by women scientists around Carlsbad. So yeah, if anyone's interested in joining our group, learning about us, find us on Facebook, and I'm happy to give you more information. And we also offer other resources, like at the national level, they have scholarships. They also do online training to learn how to negotiate your salary, right? Because that's a big thing, equal pay. So a big part of the problem they say with equal pay is women don't negotiate their salary. They don't ask for more money, and men do. And so this training is supposed to help women learn how to negotiate their salary and make sure that they're getting the pay that they deserve.
That it's just sad that it's the way that it is, but every business is going to try to hire someone at the lowest possible salary that they can. Like, I mean, beyond anything, beyond discrimination or sex of the individual, they're like, if I can get you for as cheap as possible, then that's what I'm going to do. So if you're sitting in there and you're not speaking up for what your value is and what you're worth, then they're going to lowball you every time, because they are a business that wants to pay you as little as possible. And, and that's just how capitalism and those businesses work. So you have to speak up for yourself and know your worth, not accept less than that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that training is very helpful because it is intimidating if you have to go in and negotiate your salary. And I think definitely that's something that's a great resource for everyone. It's a very great resource.
I think so. I think that's very interesting. I'm curious, like some of the tips and stuff that you would do to walk into what is a very nervous environment where somebody absolutely has power over you, right? Yeah. Regardless if they have power over you when you're sitting there asking for more money. Yeah. That power structure is, you're the low person on the totem pole in that situation. It's not great. And so the tips on how to go in there confidently and ask for your worth, I think that's like some of the best advice I think I've heard. I mean, overall, when it comes to helping people get their value and their job. So you just need to speak up for yourself and ask, your value. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then, no, the person next to you doing the exact same work should not make more than you. Right. Right? It's like, it's the person next to you doing a lot more than work than you probably should.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'd love to ask this question.
Yeah,
it's all right, guys. Like, so you've done a whole lot, right? In STEM, you're a statistical minority in the STEM field, especially here in WIP and mining for sure, right? Mining's a male-dominated industry. So you have been the future for women and girls, right? You've done it. You've lived it so far. But what do you hope for the future for women and girls is? I mean, the future. Now, I preface this by saying that, like, here at the college, I do believe there are more women enrolled than there are men in every one of our programs, outside of like some of the workforce development stuff that we're doing, because those are literally WIP miners, the underground people, right? So we have more women than men enrolled in the college. So it seems like a lot of things are heading in a positive direction. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you hope for in the future?
Well, I hope that it keeps heading in that direction, because I know we've made a lot of strides, a lot of improvements, and I think, in fact, there's, I just lost my train of thought. I just think that we need to keep that momentum going, you know, because I think back, you know, when women were fighting for the right to vote, right? There's a lot of momentum in that. There was a lot of women fighting for that. And now, you know, I think we need to keep that going. And I know maybe there's not like a huge major issue right now. You know, we have the right to vote. We don't need to go out and storm to get our right to vote. But I still think there's a big gap between men and women.
No, there's definitely, I mean, there's definitely challenges.
It's there. So how do we close that gap? Well, that's what we need to work on. And I hope that we start closing that gap. I hope that women are more respected in the workplace. You know, I hope that for young girls, young women going into the workforce, they are respected by their male peers, their male colleagues, you know. And I want to see a future where women can be in the workplace, be respected, be in leadership roles, more leadership roles, you know.
So let me ask you a question about like the ideas. I think that some of what maybe, outside perspective, obviously being the only guy here, but I think maybe of some of what you experience in the offices or meetings at work and stuff like that, the men are very subconscious, right? We're not necessarily aware of how we're coming across or being dominant or like not realizing that you don't feel like you have an opportunity to speak up, right? You know, I mean, I know that I can be that way. I'm a very confident, very domineering person sometimes, you know? So I guess on that front, knowing that I doubt that a lot of men are walking around being like, how can I keep this woman down? Right? You know what I mean? So I think it's like, it's learned behavior. It's subconscious. It's environmentally learned, right? It's not something that necessarily doing a person. So how about a couple of tips on men in workforces on how they can not necessarily identify, but make sure that they're being a little more inclusive than they are. So it's not subconscious, but it's also it's consciously on their brain when they're in a meeting to be like, okay, let me make sure that everyone at this table has got an opportunity to do some input instead of being like, well, she's quiet, so whatever. Right, so give us some tips on how we can do that.
Yeah, I think for men, like I said, I think you just need to involve the women more. Maybe ask more direct questions. Maybe not necessarily call them out or put them on the spot, but just maybe try to involve them more in the conversation. Let them speak up. I think
sometimes you've got a class or a meeting, right? And you've got that one or two people who are very dominant and want to contribute on everything. Typically a guy, right? Traditionally. And in that situation, you've got to shut that person down a little bit. Be like, well, I'm glad you're excited. Really like how excited you are about this. Yeah. But Cassie over here is kind of squirming. I can see she'd like to say something. Cassie, why don't you jump in here and let us know what you think? Like maybe like a strategy like that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said, just including them. I think, too, and this is a little bit off topic from what we're saying, but I think subconsciously men tend to give women more administrative tasks to do. And say you're having a meeting, and I think it's just like instinct for a man to be like, Sky, take notes, please.
Right.
You know?
Well, or, you know, I actually had Sky get me a cup of coffee in the middle of this interview. People don't know that because it's just subconsciously. I was like, okay. Hey, give me a cup of coffee, Sky, right?
You know, but, you know, you're not really probably asking your male colleagues to go, like, or if, say you need to make a copy of something in a paper, are you going to ask your like male buddy over here, like, will you go make a copy of this for me? Or are you going to see the woman sitting over there and say, hey, make a copy of this, you know? And so I think all these things happen, and I don't think it's like you said, it's probably not even necessarily on purpose. They probably are not even aware that they're doing it, but it happens, you know. Or say you're having an office potluck, who's doing the cleaning up after the party? You know, it's probably the women in the office.
I have a confession. I'm going to make a confession. We have Thanksgiving at Grandma's house like every year my whole life, right? Yeah. Now we don't. We moved away a little bit. I have yet to ever cook or clean a Thanksgiving meal ever in my life. I have never cooked a dish. I've not ever cleaned up afterwards. My grandmother set the standard when we were young that the women did it. Yeah. Like she set the standard, right? And now I tell my wife, I'm like, how am I supposed to change now, babe? Right? Yeah. I do help it. But I have like, when it comes to Thanksgiving and the traditions within the family, it's like the women did all the cooking and all the families together. So there's a lot of them, right? Yeah. And the women did all the cleaning, and we ate and watched football and drank. Yeah. And then we got to sit there and do that all day. And that's literally how it is still to this day. So I got to tell you, Cassie and Sky, on my final note before we close this out, because I'll give you guys the final statement on this. I don't mind. So I don't mind that's how it is in my house. I feel quite spoiled. I can understand why maybe your guys' opinion on that, but for me, I like it.
And I think, to help educate men and women about this is just, educating about inclusion in the workplace and diversity and, to talk about how you, address those situations. And I think that type of education really helps open up minds and kind of break the barriers that we have set subconsciously. And I think that's really great.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's what we can do moving forward. And like I said, if you're a man, be willing to learn, be willing to take that advice, and don't take it as criticism, just take it as improving yourself. And women, speak up, and maybe tell your male colleagues, that they did something that made you feel, uncomfortable or made you, feel less than them. And let them know that they're doing it because they, like you said, they may not even know that they're doing it.
Right. Yeah, and I was also going to ask, what does Women's History Month mean to you? I know, the month of March is Women's History Month. International Women's Day is on March 8th. But what does it mean to you?
I think it's really important to reflect on the women who came before us, to see what they did for us. And I'm lucky. I have a lot of female role models in my life. My mom, my grandma, my aunt, lots of great family members. And, even my friends, I look up to them and they are my role models too. And so I think when you look back on women's history, you see what other women had to go through to help you get where you are today. And I really think it's important to remember that, to look back and say, wow, if I was living, even like in the 50s or 60s, would I have the career that I have today? Probably not,
Right.
And so it's pretty incredible to think about all those women and all the accomplishments. And then it's also awesome to look at it and say, like, that could be me someday. Maybe someday, 50 years from now, someone could be reading about me in a history book, and I just think that's really cool. And it really means a lot to me to think about it. And I'm glad that we celebrate it.
I think so too. And, even in the last 30 years, women have made so many strides. I mean, in the 90s, they weren't, FMLA didn't really exist. So it's great that we have that. And I hope that gets better, as we grow as a nation. But it's just incredible to see how much has changed even in a short period of time.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So we're almost out of time, ladies, but I wanted to see if any of you wanted a closing statement. You know what I mean? Sky or Cassie, who wants to be the last one to speak?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Cassie, for joining us and being so inspiring for other girls in Carlsbad. It is great that you're doing all these things with AAUW and all the great things at Los Alamos Technical Associates. And we will be doing this series for the month of March, and we'll be interviewing other females this month. So I look forward to really speaking with all the empowering females we have in our community. We have so many, and it's just great to be able to recognize them in March.
I just want to say thank you so much for asking me to come talk. I'm truly honored for this, and it makes me feel really special. So I just hope that all the women and girls out there know that they can do whatever they want to do, and there's support out there. I'll support you. If you need somebody to cheer you on, call me up. I'll go cheer you on. And, I just hope that everyone has a really great future and that things keep moving in a positive direction.
All right. Cassie Marrs, thank you very much for coming on the program. Sky Soto, thank you for guest hosting for the first time. I look forward to hearing you a lot more. And I think that we should probably be profiling women leaders in our community more than just the month of March. What do you think? We can go beyond the month of March, but a great start for us. So thank you all very, very much. You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889. Also sponsored by CNB Bank. Go to carlsbadnational.com to learn more.